Yeah, the number one problem we see when agency owners start to look at tech is they get shiny object syndrome. And what I mean by that is they don't actually have the problem that the tech solves. You got to come into a meeting or a conversation about technology with a clear intent. What is my problem? What am I trying to solve? And the most important thing is, what is the ideal outcome that this technology can provide for my agency? If you don't know those questions, it's too early for you to be vetting technology. And honestly, it's not good for the tech vendor either. Because if I don't have a clear understanding of how I can help your agency, then we're just going to flounder on the demo. You're going to buy my product. You're not going to like it. And we're not going to achieve the results together that we want. So to me, that is the biggest thing, man. It's got to be intent driven when you're looking at these things.
Big red flag that I would put here is that, does this fit into my agency's broader digitization strategy? You know, insurance is going through this phase right now where it's being digitized. It's kind of coming online, so to speak, from the manual status quo. And, you know, does this fit the long-term strategy, or is this just like a cool little tool that's gonna, be, gone, and change in the next few years? And then, another one that I think is really critical is security. Security is important for everything, but in insurance, security is paramount. There is a lot of information flying around, and understanding the company's stance on security can be a big deal breaker to know, like, hey, this is not going to be here long term. So SOC 2 compliance, how does the agency handle data? How is the data going to flow back and forth between your systems, and is it going to be safe? So those would be, some pretty big ones that would make me skeptical if I was looking at another software and I was going to be trying to implement this into my workflows.
I would say the first thing is security. I think that's very important. In an industry where there's a lot of PII being handed back and forth and your customers are trusting you with their information, I think that should be one of the first things you look at, and not going down the rabbit hole of even evaluating something if it doesn't check that box. And then I would also say, just from a general reviews perspective, within your peers or within your networks, understanding, have other agencies had good success with a product like this, I think is a good place to start.
That's a great question, man. I think track record comes into play big time. And it's going to be harder for younger technologies, right? They don't have a track record yet. If they don't have a track record, meaning they don't have other agencies using their product that you've either talked to, that you're going to be an early adopter. And what it means by an early adopter is you're going to be wearing a lot of their problems. They're going to have bugs. It's not going to work the way that they explained it. So I think first and foremost, really understanding where that tech vendor is in their life cycle. Hey, am I brand new? Do I have a bunch of customers? Have all the bugs, or never all the bugs, but most of the bugs been figured out? And is this going to be more plug and play? There is nothing wrong with being an early adopter. You just have to understand that as an agency owner. Are you willing to take that on with that tech vendor? So the other thing I'd be really, really cognizant of is, if it is an established vendor and you start asking other agencies what their experiences were like, the number one question that gets missed is, how did you implement it? Tell me about how you implemented that technology. The number one miss we see with agencies, specifically with Glovebox, that maybe aren't as successful as they wanted to be, the implementation didn't go well, right? We didn't have a champion. We didn't follow the directions of success, right? We have a blueprint that shows agencies, here's how you implement it, and you find the success that you're expecting. If it doesn't get implemented, it's not going to get used well, and thus what the agency expected to happen doesn't happen. So be very, very careful when you're asking other agencies about a technology that agency may have been using or is using. You want to ask the question, how did you implement it? That is the number one thing that I see.
I would look at it this way. Since the industry is going through a big change, things are being upgraded. You're going from a horse and carriage to a car. You're going from, DVDs, to digital. How does this align long term 3 to 5 years, what does this look like for my agency? So you're not even looking at the tech first, like where does my agency want to be in 3 to 5 years? What does that look like? Because that's going to inform a lot of the what tech should I have. Then second, the nice to haves, to me, simply put, I think is this just marginal improvement? Is this just incrementally making one of our current processes a little bit better? A must-have is this is foundational. This touches my operations. This touches everything I do, and it's going to continue to expand. And then looking at these things from where can I build on top of? If this is just like a point solution, a small product, is it going to just be out the door later? Is there going to be another better one coming out? Now we're just at a race to the bottom to find the next coolest, great note-taking app, type idea. There's always going to be a bunch out there. Which one's foundational to this, And again, back to where do you see your agency going in 3 to 5 years, and this fundamental shift in where insurance is moving just to keep up is really looking, and this even hits is this, like a legit product, or, I'm kind of skeptical, are we just solving a problem, or are we addressing the root cause of it? And I think a lot of times when there's a shift in technology from an old way to a new way, you're evaluating tech from the old way of doing things through the status quo lens, and that is not how to solve a problem. You cannot solve the problem with the same state of mind that you're doing things in. You need to fundamentally reframe the status quo, and instead of just looking at your current problem and solving the problem, maybe you need to zoom out and you need to look and find the root cause of the problem. Maybe it's way up the river that's causing the flooding over here. And instead of trying to fix the flooding over here over and over with different cool products, why don't you go upriver and solve it before it even becomes a problem? So, looking at those solutions for an agency, you have to now not only look at just my agency staff, how does my sales team, how does my service team operate, but you need to look at this holistically in terms of how does my policyholder engage with these tools as well, and how does this fit into the entire life cycle of a policyholder end to end, and not even just the life cycle of the policyholder, but something comes in from the policyholder. How does this touch your staff? How does your staff then complete something and then distribute back to the clients? So to me, the big one, a must-have right now is, am I solving the root cause of the problem, and understanding that the problems that most agencies have are due to the status quo of being in kind of a legacy industry, and not necessarily just looking at the problem to solve, zooming out and going, how do we eliminate the problem? Let's not solve it with tech. Let's eliminate it so that we can focus on bigger, better problems.